Impro Theater and the cast and crew of this online performance would like to take this time to honor the indigenous peoples of the ancestral and unceded homelands we each inhabit, and to consider the legacy of colonization and its far-reaching effects. There is a new Intro to Narrative class from Impro Theater School starting on Saturday, July 9th at 10:30 a.m. That's an 8-week class with the wonderful Ryan Smith. And you can sign up by going to improtheater.com/hashtag online classes, or you can email school@improtheater.com. And on Saturday, July 9th, also at 10:30 a.m., there's a new physical core class with the wonderful Maddie Goff starting. And that is also an 8-week class coming up Sunday, July 10th, 2022, starting at 10:30 a.m. for 12 weeks with yours truly is a genre core class. And we are going to work on the Twilight Zone. You must have completed core 1, 2, and 3 in order to enroll. You can email school@improtheater.com, or you can go to improtheater.com/hashtag online classes. Hey everybody, welcome to Impro Talk. I'm Mike Rock, your host, and very excited about Dwayne Colbert coming up soon. First, a couple of announcements. I want to let you know that there's a new Intro to Narrative class being taught by the one and only Lisa Fredrickson coming up on July 17th. You can sign up for that by going to improtheater.com, or you can email school@improtheater.com. Also on July 18th, a new physical core 1 class with Maddie Goff starts, and you can sign up for that in the same manner. Very exciting for that. Also want to let you know that on Thursday, July 15th, we are continuing our bi-weekly production of Cold Tofu's Ensemble Team show, which is every other Thursday at 7:30 p.m. on the improtheater.com, the Impro Theater Twitch channel, right there on the Impro Theater Twitch channel, which is probably what you're watching right now, or listening to. You might be listening. I don't know. This might be the future, and you're listening. On Friday, July 16th, it is the return of the Impro Theater Community Jam. And if you want to sign up for the jam, you can go to improtheater.com and sign up for the jam, and we'd love to see you there. Without further ado, I want to introduce to you an actor, writer, director, producer, improviser, and all-around swell guy. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to Impro Talk, Mr. Dwayne Colbert.
Hey, happy to be here, Mike. Thanks
Hey, Dwayne.
Hey, how's it going, buddy?
Thank you for being here, man.
Bro, my pleasure.
I see that you're on a beautiful beach with.
Well, I wouldn't normally be, but it was prescribed by my doctor, so I
get it. Listen, I get it in this day and age. Yeah. If you are listening to this on Saturday, July 10th or thereabouts, 2021, you'll know that the pandemic is still with us a little bit, still happening. Are you coming out of it? Are you kind of like have you weathered the storm okay yourself?
I don't know if we've, as collectively, have weathered the storm. Quite honestly, I gotta say, a friend of mine invited me to do a get together recently, a couple weeks ago. Sorry, that's a doggy toy in the back that talks.
Absolutely okay.
And I'm driving there. He lives downtown. I didn't realize I had any type of social anxiety till I saw the explosion of people on the streets at these restaurants, and I was like, it's a good thing because I like the outdoor dining, but then I have to walk through them and interact with people, and that was a little jarring. But I slowly start to melt back into my personality a bit. I just think it's just going to take a bit of time. But yeah, it's all still very kind of up in the air. We all want it very much to be over and done with, but knowing that it isn't makes everything just kind of up in the air a bit for certain.
Yeah, it's sort of like a weird wave of like we sort of like kind of let down our guard and got excited about doing stuff again, and then suddenly there's this new variant and all this kind of stuff
Yeah.
that's making people necessarily, scared again about it a little bit. So
Yeah.
anyway, we forge ahead.
We
If
forge
you are
ahead.
listening to this way in the future, I hope you are enjoying a pandemic-free life.
Yes, exactly. Just laughing about this, as if, oh, the bad old days. Yeah.
Dwayne, let's
Yes, sir.
not bury the lead, as they say in the newspaper business.
Okay.
You are a winner of an Emmy Award, Daytime Emmy
I
Award, I
am. Yes,
believe.
sir. Yeah.
Can you talk about that? That's so
Sure.
exciting. That's so
It's very
cool.
exciting. I won it last year during the pandemic, 2020, which was amazing. So that was a fun year in some regards and not in others. But it was a show that I don't know if you know Neil Gargiulo.
Sure. Neil
Yeah.
Gargiulo, Brainwashed by Tunes.
Yes, Neil is a friend of mine who I had known from IO and then the Nerdist and then the Ruby Theater. We're just really good friends. We're on a team together. And Neil had this idea that he had already pitched to Funny or Die, and they had already said, "Yeah, we're going to do it." And then when he did, he said, "Okay, now that you want to do the show, I want to bring on my friend Dwayne Colbert as a writer producer on it." And they were like, "Whoa, whoa, who's this guy?" So he gave them my bona fides, and they were like, "Oh, yeah, sounds great." And then the first time Neil and I were meeting about the show, as he's explaining what the show is, because he kind of gave me a brief overview, and it didn't matter really. I just wanted to work with Neil. But once we're actually him and I sitting down chopping it up, I said to him, I said, "It'd be great for the show, my buddy Wayne." And he was like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah." And then we kept talking more about it. And I was like, "Oh," I kept saying, "But Wayne would be awesome for this. Wayne would be great." He's like, "Wait a minute, are you talking about Wayne Brady?" I was like, "Yeah." He was like, "How do you know Wayne Brady?" And I was like, "Oh, well, I was a stand-in on Who's Line for years when they did the reboot on the CW, and Wayne it's just such an awesome human being that he would pay attention to when I had postcards up there for shows and asked about my improv, and he would sometimes come a little early than his call time and look at the monitor and comment on my improv. So he was just an all-around just nice guy. So I pitched it to him over text, and he was like, "Yeah, let's do it." I was like, "Are you I mean, he's just salt of the earth, right?" Next thing you know, we're writing a show with Wayne Brady, with Leah Thompson, who Neil knew through a friend of a friend. And then the third celebrity, we only had 3 episodes. It was a limited digital series on funnyordie.com. And the third episode was with Jason Alexander and Funny or
Of course.
Die, where I had a relationship with him, and he came on board. The best story about this, real quick,
Yes,
about
no, no quick. You just go for it. We're loving it.
we got 2 Daytime Emmy nominations, one for Outstanding Original Song and one for Outstanding Writing for a special category series. Um, and we won one for Outstanding Original Song. Jason Alexander had been nominated for, I don't know how many times he had been nominated, but multiple times for an Emmy for Seinfeld. And all the other cast members, I believe, had won, and he hadn't. So he finally won an Emmy from our show. He'd been nominated several times, but never won. And then our little cartoon won him an Emmy. And he wrote this beautiful, nicely, thank you email to Neil, which was really great. It was beautiful.
I remember hearing Neil talk about getting a phone call, maybe, or a text from Jason saying
Hmm.
like, "Dude, you
Right?
I have an Emmy now
I mean, he
because of
worked
you."
the magic. Even
That's
Wayne, he sent me a text some months later, and then he was like, "Look what I got in the mail," and he was showing me the plaque that we got for the nomination for the writing because he wrote with us, Leah wrote with us, and so did Jason. So it was really
so,
great.
so for people who don't know Brainwashed by Tunes, Neil Gargiulo does all this research on old cartoons that have these, not so hidden, racist or misogynist or anti-Semitic themes and characters and that sort of thing.
Yeah, he currently has an archive cartoon series on sci-fi called Held In. So in putting that together, he had to go through a lot of archive animation footage that he had to license. While he was watching all that licensed footage is where he saw all that misogyny and anti-Semitism and homophobia and racism. So he said, "Wow, there's another show there, but I'm gonna put a pin in that," which was great because
Yeah.
I had a similar idea when he approached me about it. I tore out a page from my vision book, and I showed him. I was like, "Look, I had this very same idea. I just called it a thing. How do things become a thing?" And our whole concept for brainwash was how does something so negative and horrible and not great for society become normalized? So we're saying, oh, because through this visual medium of cartoons,
Yeah, and because it's cartoons, it's
palatable,
yeah,
accepted,
it's
you know, Yeah, they kind of woo you into it, and it started even before the moving picture. When we did our episode on anti-Semitism, we worked with some, I forget if it was the Holocaust Museum, or I know we worked with some Jewish institutions doing our research, and you're talking about like, I think it was like something like 400 something AD. There were depictions of paintings where they were um, exaggerating features of Jewish people, and portraying them as evil beings. Um, in a way that was political to try to move things about. So we're like, oh, wait a minute, this was already, imagery was already being used as a political tool, as a propaganda tool, way before the moving picture. So we're like,
Yeah.
wow, this is amazing. Yeah.
Is it an old,
For the record,
old terrible tradition?
that is
No,
not my
that's my
dog.
dog. That's our dog.
Yeah.
That's our
But yes,
dog.
yes, old terrible tradition.
We got dogs on both ends of this
Yeah.
interview, folks. She'll be fine. But that's amazing for you,
Yeah.
Neil, and the gang, because
Yeah.
what a wonderful little project. Three episodes,
3 episodes,
and
beautiful.
great people involved, and
Great
a
people.
really
And
cool.
Funny or Die, just giving a shout out to funnyordie.com. They were really great. We had two really, really great executives that we worked with, David Saint and Chris Michael. And they really, they don't have to do stuff like this. That it's
Yeah,
Funny or Die, so it's whatever really that they choose to be focused on the funny. But this is more like social commentary that
yeah.
has some funny, and we really appreciated the love and care that they took to make sure that we were taking care of the funny, taking care of the subject matter in a way that was professional, and I don't know, just like just total pros. So
It's so
kudos to
cool
them.
that it was like a compact thing, and you were like, we're gonna do this,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
who knew? Like, and
Who
then
knew?
Emmy
Who
awards,
knew?
not
Well, I
first
gotta
of all
say,
nominations, right?
Neil knew, because when that first meeting when I was talking to him about my friend Wayne should do the show, he said even then he was like, "Yeah, so we're gonna do this thing. Hopefully, we can win like an Emmy off of this." And I was just, I swear to God, I laughed. I was like, "Yeah, right." Because we've done many. I've done many things with many people. Um, Not a whole lot at funnyordie.com at that point, but it just sounded like, doing, I was just like wanting to have fun with my friend and do some fun stuff that might or might not break through in some kind of way. But Emmy was not on the radar, but Neil had the mindset, was like, no, no, we're going to win. We might win an Emmy. If at the very least we get nominated. I was like, okay, bro. Uh, but turns out he knew what he was talking. We worked with
Neil
Greg
Gargiulo,
Jenkins.
visionary.
Visionary, yeah. And Greg Jenkins did the music, and it was the first time I had worked with Greg, and Greg was just brilliant. Because I had done musicals before, which musical comedies, which I think was the reason why Neil wanted me on the project as well. Not just because we're friends, but also because I had some traction and some history in doing this kind of work. But I had never worked with Greg before, so it was interesting to work with Greg, where Neil and I were writing the lyrics, but Greg came up with the melody and the music, and then he sung gibberish to the melody and sent us that. I had never worked that way before. The musical directors I had worked with before, we were like side by side, and they were coming up with the melody on the spot, and sometimes we'd change it, and we'd both be writing lyrics. So this was new to me, but I came to love it.
What a
I
cool,
really
that
love it.
sounds like a cool process.
It was really cool.
And so you had done afros and ass whoopings, and you had done
Yes.
shade,
Shade, yes.
yeah,
Shade,
shade.
a colorful musical comedy, yes.
Were those both at Second City Hollywood?
They were both at Second City right before the pandemic. Shade had just been accepted into the Fringe Festival, Hollywood Fringe. We had won a scholarship for it. We're going to put it up there. We're going to expand the show in some way. We're going to make some tweaks to it. The original cast was all in. It was going to be a big deal. And then pandemic hit. And then they kept pushing. They put it off last year. This year, they weren't sure if they were going to do virtual, partially virtual, or not at all. And when I just heard partially virtual, I was like, you know what? It's been a while. Things have happened in the United States that changes the conversation about race in a way that me and Kyle McGrath, who was the co-writer on Shade, we'd have to go back in and rework it. So in us thinking about going back in and reworking it, and maybe it's going to be virtual, we just said, you know what? We just pulled it from the festival. We said, no, thank you. We'll put it up another way. So we had already started writing it as a screenplay, and
You
we want to make
had.
sure that we're not tone deaf about the current conversations and future conversations that we feel should be had about race. Because like Afros and Ass Whoopings was a musical comedy that only had black and white cast members. So the conversation about race that it was having was between black and white. And I always felt like friends of mine who aren't black or white always feel left out in that conversation about race in America. So Shade was about everyone's hang-ups about race. So we skewered everyone and came from a real place. I would have After the shows, sometimes I would be having heated discussions with some audience members about them saying things to me like, "Well, black people can't be racist." I was like, actually, I just gave you a few examples in there, and those were from real life because my mom said that, and things like that. Where I understand their point of view about because we're not in positions of power that we couldn't be maybe form a racist institution necessarily, or something like to that effect. But as far as the ability to say that a an advantage is had because of race, anybody has the ability to do that. And we see that happening all the time, and it's not a good thing. It's not progressive or forward thinking, or is it going to move the conversation for the human species at all? So we wanted to just shine a light on that.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And you did it with your art. You did it
Yeah,
with
absolutely.
musical comedy.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it goes deep. I've done a deeper dive than I ever have in my life in the last year. Reading and
Good, good.
watching stuff like people like Ibram X. Kendi and it's really obviously for a lot of us made us like take a second look at being oh, I'm woke,
Right, right.
I'm
What does that
aware
even
or
mean?
whatever,
Right,
what does that even mean
right.
exactly?
Yeah, yeah.
But it is so much deeper, so interesting that after the show people would come up and like you would be there for them to
Oh yeah. Well, coming off of Afros, which went for a year and a half, it had two extensions. It was even the first show at Second City at the time that had ever been um, done on a weekly show. That they gave us a second night on it. But coming off of Afros, we used to have talkbacks. So every time we got an extension, I would ask for another ask about the show. So at one point, I asked if they could move the show behind us back a half hour so we could have these talkbacks. Because what I found was that during Afros, people would engage me. They would
yeah.
want to know who wrote this, who directed it, who brought this to us. We had there was a school in La Canyada, Flint Ridge. I forget the name of it, but they have a writing program at this high school, and throughout this program, they go see different plays throughout the Los Angeles area. And a group of them from that school, from that program, came to see Afros, and they like demanded to have like a talkback with me in another room outside of the theater. So I come in there and I'm just like, attitude, Mike. I just like so kind of pissy. I don't know why I was just grumbly about that. This at that point we hadn't started to talk back, but I was just like for some reason just kind of just ornery. So I answer their questions with attitude each time. I'm like, yeah, this, yeah, that, and then the last question came from this young girl, and she said, "You ended the show on a really positive note. Why did you choose to do that after that subject matter?" And I was like, it just broke me, man. I just
Oh.
softened up and I was like, because I'm hopeful. So I wanted to leave the audience on a hopeful note that we're all in this together. Amazing. I mean, that it gives me chills now thinking about
Oh
just her
man.
just breaking that down. One
Yeah.
other instance where we did start to do talkbacks, but this she was a professor at Occidental College. She approached me after the show, and she was like, "We'd like to invite you and some of the cast to the campus to maybe talk to some of our students." I forget which department it was. It might have been acting or the drama, or it might have been writing. I'm not sure which, but a few of the cast members came with me, and we walk into a room with a whiteboard full of questions, like a huge whiteboard
Wow.
full of questions. And we all
Wow.
sit down and we have this lovely conversation about all the questions that they have. And then there was one girl didn't get a chance to ask a question yet, and she was just sitting there quiet the whole time. And then when the instructor told her to go ahead and ask her question, I saw her trembling, and I was like, "Oh my goodness, what's going to happen here?" So she said to me, "In your show, there was a rape joke. I don't feel like that was necessary. Why did you put that in?" And it threw me. And I was like, oh my God, what kind of asshole am I? And then my back stiffened up and I'm like, I'm not an asshole at all. I know I approached this thing with love. So I said to her, I hope I don't offend anyone in your audience, but I said to her, um, the opening of this show, Afros and Ass Whoopings, is a scene, hilarious scene that has people falling out of their seats of three white cops shooting a black kid, killing him right in front of you. And it's hilarious, right? We let the audience know what you're in for. And I asked her, did you laugh at that? And she was like, yeah. So you can laugh at a black man being murdered, but you have a problem with a well-earned satirical rape joke that came out of an improv from that actor, which I thought was brilliant. She didn't say another word. And I wasn't trying to attack her in any way, but I just felt like I had to defend my point of view and what we're trying to do with the show and not let it feel like Twitter, where everyone's just coming in with their own point of view that misses the point and starts another, tangent conversation that has really nothing to do with what we're trying to say.
It's so difficult doing art and satire, and then having to kind of like say like, well, wait a minute, this is going to be interpretable, and particularly in the retelling and the second retelling and the third retelling by people three ways removed,
Right.
or something like that. That must have been. Did you know you were? I mean, you must have known that you were putting
Yeah,
yourself up
I
for
did.
a challenge, right?
Quite honestly, I started writing afros and ass whoopings after Michael Brown got killed in Ferguson. And I was like, I said to myself, I was like, they're still killing us. They're killing us at the fucking, on the streets. They're probably gonna keep shooting him at the friggin' autopsy. And I was like, ooh, that's kind of funny. That feels like a sketch. Standing over a body. I know it sounds terrible, but I did. So, but I was so nervous about the subject matter that I didn't write like I normally wrote. I got my phone and on the notes app, I just took down a note, runner sketch. They're shooting him at the, they shoot him. They shoot him at the autopsy. They shoot him at, they stand on his casket, shoot him at the, just like a runner type thing. So I kept, every time I had a thought about what a quote unquote show could be, I would just write it down as a sketch. It's a quick little sketch, kind of just beats of a sketch on my notes app. But I started with the title. I wanted a title that said Black people and police brutality without actually saying the words Black people and police brutality.
Sure.
And I wanted an alliteration, and I wanted to have a visceral name that I had to then live up to with the show. I wanted the show to live up to the name because every time I said the name to someone, they bristled. They bristled in a way that they knew we were going with the tone of the satire because they still thought it was funny just to even say the words afros and ass women. It sounds funny, right?
Yes.
But it sounds very harsh at the same time,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? So once I sat down and had what I thought was this enough of a collection of sketches on my phone, I said, all right, let me put this puzzle piece together. And in putting that together, I start talking to people when I would go out and do other shows and improv or a sketch or whatever, or teach or something like that. And I would be hanging out at the bar, and I would see a friend of mine who I had in mind when I was writing it, and I would tell them, I'll be like, "Hey man, I'm writing something for you." They were like, "What? You're writing something for me?" I was like, "Yeah, I'm writing something for you. I'm going to put on a big show at Second City." Now I did that one because I wanted to make sure I kept writing. Hold myself accountable by the fact that I told other people about it.
Even if you didn't have an idea for that person?
Didn't matter. Didn't matter. I knew who I wanted to work with almost
Of
before I even
course. Yeah.
cast
Of
it.
course. Yeah.
So I was like, I'm writing for you. I'm writing for you. And I would tell these people I'm writing for them. They'd be like, great, man, just let me know. And, I'd work with you. So I wanted, because I knew that this was going to be touchy, Mike. So I was like, well, I got to get them on board with a mission that we can all just kind of move forward with this idea of a thing rather than just me and the story I want to tell and, put up, I want to direct it, all that. I wanted to make it a collective in some way, an ensemble. So I put it together, and people, as I kept telling them, I'm writing for you. A buddy of mine who was in a show that was running at Second City said, we just got a new musical director that took over, and he's this young, cool dude, and he's just, moved here, and you should work with him for the thing you're writing. I was like, I don't know. And then I heard it from like 3 other people, the same name, Huey Stone. You should work with Huey. You should work with Huey. I was like, I don't know. Sounds like maybe I should work with you, at least meet with him. So we were at somebody's birthday party. It was at a bar, and I saw him, and he saw me because I don't know how I even knew who he was at that point. And then we both walked up to each other, and then we both almost at the same time said, everyone keeps telling me I should work with you.
That's
so
a good
we
sign,
met,
man.
right?
That's a really good sign.
We met the next day for lunch. I gave him the first and only copy at the time of the script for Afros. And I said, just, we talked about it first, what it was. And I said, just let me know what you think by tomorrow. I don't know why I gave him a deadline, but I said, just let me know what you think by tomorrow. Sleep on it. I was walking back to my car. Before I even made it to my car, he was like, I'm in. He texted me, I'm in.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
I'm in. I was like, wow. So I only helped him like a couple of lyrics on the initial song because we wanted to do one song to present with the script to present the Second City. They had never done anything like this before. So I was like, we really got to sell him on this. So I just kind of helped him with the hook, and he wrote the entire song. We put that on the CD. I know no one has CDs now. We clipped it it wasn't that long ago. It was in 2015. 2015. So we clipped it onto the script, gave it to Josh Funk, who was the artistic director at Second City Hollywood. And Funk, it was less than a week, maybe like 2-3 days. He was like, "Oh, this is the kind of stuff we should." He came out. I was just there in the office for something else. He came out waving the script to the people in the office, saying, "This right here, this is the kind of shows we should be doing." and he was a champion for the show ever since. Ever since, he was just a beautiful, beautiful man. Gave great notes. Tore me a new one up and down about the previews. Got it in shape with me. I remember sitting down later. This is way later on after the run. We're trying to do this talk of it going to Chicago and everything. So I'm sitting down with the owner of Second City at the time, Andrew Alexander. It was me, Andrew Alexander, and Josh Funk at Musso and Frank's. And I remember Funk saying to Andrew Alexander, that show Afros brought in more black people to the theater than we ever brought in Detroit. You have to put this show again in Chicago.
Wow.
I mean, you can't get a bigger advocate for the show than Josh Funk. He was just amazing about it. So it ultimately did not end up going to Chicago after maybe 2 or 3 different iterations of it was supposed to be going. There's even talk about it going there now, but I can't hear that. I just can't. I told him, don't play with my emotions. I wrote it as a screenplay. And Huey Stonefish ended up through a competition show signing with a management company, 3 Arts Entertainment. So we took it to 3 Arts, and they took it out, and they hit all the major production companies of everyone you think it should go to, Oprah's and Michael B. Jordan's and Jordan Peele's. We took it all over, and everyone said they're pretty much the same thing that we had producers coming while it was running too. It was live, and they all pretty much said the same thing, Mike, which is crazy. They all said, "This is great, just not for me." Swear to God, they all said the same thing. Nobody said this is horrible. Nobody said I know just the person for it, or I'm tentative. Maybe if you change this, none of that. It was always the same kind of sentiment. This is great, just not for me. So my manager, that guy who took it out, he ends up being my manager now, both writing and acting. And I remember him telling me when he signed me, he was like, "I know there's still something there about a Christmas Carol type ghost from Black History Past coming to visit this kid to talk about police brutality today." He said, "I know there's something there." That's pretty much Afros in a nutshell, what I just said. But he said, "I know there's something there. We're going to do something with that." I just love that I have somebody that is an advocate and believes in me and believes in my work, and so I know me and Zach are going to do big things.
I trust that you will. It sounds like the way it came together and the reception that it got and et cetera. Like people for years have said, like when you have something that you've created that you believe in, that you get some support behind, all those no's are some like sort of steering
It's
mechanism,
wiggling your way to a yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I hope it finds its way soon.
Yeah, and if not, you know what? No sweat off my. I swear. I mean, as much passion as I put behind that show, one of the reasons why we wrote Shade was I told Huey, I was like, bro, they kept asking us anyway, what else you got? So let's just give it to them. Let's give them something else. Let's keep it going. Let's keep the conversation going. I wanted us to be known for social commentary that was done comedically with music. So he was also I hired Huey as a rapper on the song we wrote for Jason Alexander for Bring West by Tune. So we've done 3 things together that are musical comedy that have a social outlook on them, or we're trying to a social justice outlook on them. So
Sure.
I was like, well, if we're trying to build a brand, that's us. When we work together, now individually we do different things. When we partner with other people, we do different things. But together, that's been our track record, and let's keep that going.
Fantastic. And Kyle Kansas McGrath is involved in the.
Kyle's Kansas McGrath is a badass motherfucker, man. People don't know how badass Kyle is.
He is a funny man.
I really love him.
He is one of the funniest people that I even know. I mean,
he's got it. He's got the job. I remember once we were doing a roast for Huey Stonefish, who I just mentioned as a music director. We were doing a roast for Huey, and Kyle, I think he was the last person to roast. And he had this is after mountains of people doing jokes, all from so-called comedy scene or whatever. He was just like, every joke he did was just like, nailed it. I was like, ooh, that's a little rough. I mean, Kyle he's got it. He's got it rough.
He does. So let's backtrack a little bit. Yeah. You're an LA kid.
I am an LA kid. I'm born and raised in LA. So generic. I even went to LA high school,
And did you know as a little kid that you wanted to act, write, direct, et cetera, et cetera? Did you?
I was so far removed from Hollywood. It was ridiculous. Like, we had a bridge in between the old LA High and the new LA High, because back in whatever year before I was born, there was an earthquake, and then the only thing left was like a big tower. So at this bridge connecting the two, old and new. Right in the middle of that bridge was a breezeway, and you could look out and you could see the Hollywood sign. So every day for like my whole high school term, whatever, I would see the Hollywood sign, and I would walk by and go, ugh, Hollywood. It was gross to us. I never even went to Hollywood. Only times I went to Hollywood was to see a movie. at the Cinerama Dome or something like
Yeah.
that. But Hollywood was just not something I even went to UC Davis for math. It's just, I'd always drawn. I was a visual artist, and when I got to Davis, I saw other friends who had majored in like graphic design or other visual arts, and I was like, oh man, they can't even draw. I can draw better than that. So I didn't know you could make a career out of art. I thought that I had to get this practical job because I was good at math and I was going to be an actuary. And I was like, well, that's just what you do, you know.
Yeah.
But once I found out you could have a career at art, I got an internship. I came back to LA from Davis. I got an internship at a small animation house where I was just like I just enrolled in a class at a junior college just so I could qualify for an internship, I just wanted to learn the whole process of animation. I just loved it so much. I loved everything about it. I saw The Lion King. I said I want to do that. You know, so I was like, I want to know how it works. So I emailed all the um, I might have even called them at the time. I don't even know if I called all the animation studios that could be found and that on the internet at the time. And I didn't realize at the time that they were all mostly here in Burbank and the surrounding area. I was like, wait, they're all here in Southern California. This is amazing. So they all would like either send me packages or talk over the phone about, oh, this is how you do what we do. And I just kind of followed that path of trying to do what they did by getting that internship at that small house. Then from an internship, they made me a runner where I run packages for this small animation studio. And then after a runner, I became an in-house PA. So I got to learn the whole animation process, before we ship it all, the pre-production process before we ship it all overseas, as well as the post-production process when we get it back and have to make all these adjustments. I learned the whole process. I got laid off from there and moved over to Warner Brothers TV Animation, worked on Pinky and the Brain and Animaniacs as a production coordinator, where I was pushing pencils. But on the production side, I got to work with the writers and the artists. Like I would give them assignments on what you're going to draw this week or for this show, this episode. Here's the script. I would break down the script, and I just had an affinity for the writers. They were just awesome dudes. They were so funny to me. I just was hanging out with them. And we were at the Annie Awards. Our show got nominated for a few Annie Awards that year. And we were just getting hammered because it was like this champagne thing out front. We're like, oh, let's see how many you can drink before you go in there. And I had such a good time with those writers that it just put a little nugget in my head about writing in some way. This is a huge, long story, but anyway, so I ended up leaving Warner Brothers, going over to feature animation, still on the production side. I was a story PA on a few movies over there at feature, and all those storyboard artists, they were just like beautiful human beings. They would look at my drawings, help me with my drawings, tell me what books to read, tell me what classes to take, and they got to the point after years of working there, they were like, "Bro, you're ready. You're on the track right now to be on the producer side. They're only going to look at you as a producer, never look at you as an artist. You need to quit." So I heard that enough times where I was like, fuck it, I'll quit. So I quit and started submitting myself as an artist. Got a few freelance gigs here and there as a storyboard artist here and there. But at the time, there was a dip in animation where there was a lot of layoffs all over the place. So people who had been timing directors or directors in Hollywood were doing some of the work that I was doing, like a storyboard artist. So they were way better and faster than I was, new at it. So I wasn't getting a lot of work. I couldn't sustain myself as a career yet. So it got to the point where I was like, I don't think I'm built for this. I don't think I can do this. But I had no, looked at myself as a visual artist my entire life. I've drawn. So I was like, well, what do you do with that? So I loved animation so much that I just took a job as a PA, pushing pencils again at Nickelodeon. And my buddy, who was a storyboard artist, saw me and he was like, "Bro, what are you doing making copies?" I was like, I just love it. I love animation. He was like, "No, man, you're a storyboard artist is a director with a pencil." He says, well, not pencils anymore. It's all on digital form. But, you're a director, you're a cinematographer, you're an actor, you're a writer, as you draw all these panels and whatnot. So you're wasting your skills by doing that. He said they have a writing fellowship here at Nickelodeon. You should at least apply for that. I was like, okay, I'll do that. I had never written a script before. So I went home and I started looking at sitcoms and reruns on TV and started taking notes. I don't even know what those notes were, Mike, but I took some notes and I was like, I was gonna write a script. So I wrote a spec script and I submitted to Nickelodeon writing program and I got in.
Fantastic.
And I've been writing ever since.
I mean, I think it's amazing that you showed like like I don't know if it's humility or if it's whatever, but the excitement and enthusiasm, but also like I'm willing to be a PA. I'm willing to run packages in order to be around this thing that I think is so cool that I want to do.
It taught me so much. By the time I got to acting, which came because the work at Nickelodeon, I did a year-long fellowship, and the work kind of dried up. I got some freelance work after that as a writer. The work kind of started to be a little less, and my buddy was like, "Oh, maybe you got stagnant in your writing, take an improv class." So I took an improv class and been acting ever since. But like, um, it was something you said that I was reason why I brought that up. Something you just said. Lost it.
Just I was just talking about not a lot of
Oh,
people out. Yeah,
willing to humble themselves. Yeah. So
yeah,
by the time I got to acting, um, and doing comedy, every experience I had before that came into play. When it comes to doing comedy, you will use everything you've ever
yeah,
experienced.
yeah,
So being
yeah.
in those positions that are, the lowest rung on the ladder gave me a glimpse into, I mean, animation was already kind of the stepchild of Hollywood anyway. Not so much now, but at the time it was. So I felt like I was kind of removed, but it still was a window into people's personalities and these big personalities and professional productions and how it all works and what roles people play and how that all affects the end product and all that. So all of that came into play by the time I got to acting and comedy and all that.
And that first improv class, was that at Second City?
It was the Second City. I literally, when my buddy said you should take a class, I Googled the word improv because I was like, I think I know what that is. I'd never acted before in my life. But I was like, I think I know what that is. And then I saw that there was a Second City and I started reading about it in Hollywood. And I was like, what? They got alumni that touched my soul. Like these are people, not just that I think are funny, but like that were my favorite people. I didn't know there was this one place that they all went to. I was like, are you kidding? I didn't know the history of improv theater, communal delight. I didn't know any of that. But I was like, all I know is that there was one in Hollywood and it was convenient. So January '07, I took my first class with Josh Funk, who's now the artistic director. And by the time we finished that class, I was like, I quit because came from a writing background. Like
Yeah.
he'd be like 2 people up, so I get up. I'd be like, all right, me and my brother Mike over here who are inherited this farm. I'm just trying to write the whole thing, rather than improvising being a give and take. So
Yeah.
when he would say 2 people up, it got to the point where nobody wanted to get up with me.
Oh, dude.
Right? It was like a second or two, and they're looking around at each other, and then someone would get up. So after that first class of improv, I was like, you know what, deuces. I hear you got a sketch program here. I'm a writer anyway. I'm out. So I took a year long. It was at the time. The sketch is different. At the time, it was like a year long program in their sketch program, culminating in a sketch show. When I get to the point a year later, or maybe it was 8 months. That time later, they assign you a director, and the director they assigned was that first improv instructor, Josh Funk. So I saw him working with the actors because we hired, audition actors for our sketch show when I was a writer on and everything. And I saw him do that. And then they named him the artistic director at our graduation ceremony that day. So he's calling me up to get my little graduation t-shirt and certificate. He said, and this guy, for everyone, he says, and this guy should stay for our improv program. So I was like, you know what, Funk, you put me on blast like that and you're there tonight, I will stay. So I enrolled in their improv program again, and then end up taking 1, 2, and 3, which anybody who's got money to pay for those classes can take. And then after that, you have to audition for their conservatory. First audition I ever had in my life. Got in the conservatory,
Unbelievable.
graduated from the conservatory, auditioned for their touring company at the time that was doing the ship contract that they had with Norwegian Cruise Lines. Got that contract, toured around the world doing improv and sketch. And I got in a commercial agent right before I left by doing one line in a buddy's video. And they signed me off of that. But when I came back, I started going out. I've been going out ever since.
For those of you who don't know, when Dwayne says going out, it means going out for auditions for acting jobs,
Yes.
meaning
Yes.
meaning that you casting people and your agent, your representative know who you are, and they call you in to have you audition for something. So here's I've known you for a few years. In my brain, I had you as like a musical theater kid. I was like, he's an LA
Everyone thinks
guy.
that.
I thought
Everyone
like
thinks
he
that.
grew up in LA. He has been going to auditions for TV and film and whatever since he was a kid. I had this whole thing in my head, right? And we've never had this conversation, so I just never
Right.
because your career, with Nickelodeon and Sci-Fi and Funny or Die and Second City and your acting career and et cetera, it seems like, oh, here's a guy who's been doing it for his whole life. That's amazing that you
People
came
not
into it.
only you're not only not the first person to say that, but people usually think that, and they also think that for some reason I'm from Chicago.
Oh,
And they
that's
always say, when I tell them I'm
that's
not,
weird.
they always say the same thing too. They're just like, well, you should consider it a compliment. And I always do because I know what
Yeah.
they're saying. What they're saying is I'm not an asshole. Yeah, I engage, right? I mean, I'm very engaging with people. I'm very
You are.
patient with people. I'm very friendly because I like people, and I'm approachable. And I approach other people too. So I always take it as a compliment that when people assume I'm from Chicago, and I always take it as a compliment about the musical theater thing because I think that came out of me just once I got to improv, it was like I finally found my nerds. So once I found my nerds, I was Mr. Improv, like some people are, not most people, but I dove headfirst and I read every book that was available. At the time, there wasn't a lot of stuff online, so every interview I could find, anything online, I saw every show I could see. I took every class and workshop I could take. I stayed at all the theaters I could. Some I went through the entire program. Others I went for a few, steps. But I look back 10 years later, um, gosh, 11 years later, 12 years later. I don't know how long I've been improvising. And now I'm one of the people come to. They'd be like, hey, I need someone for this. They come to me for actors. They come to me for writers. They come to me for writing. I'm like, how did I get to where people look at me as the improv guy when I'm still feel like I'm that same improv nerd who's just trying to do a better show than he did last time, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Amazing. It's because you're good at math. Um,
Yeah.
so we have to talk about the Alexa new body
Oh
Super Bowl
yeah.
spot.
Oh my gosh.
We have to talk about that because it is it was such a huge thing. First of all, it's a huge commercial, but also huge for you with Michael B. Jordan, of course, and
Oh, it was Brianna Price was doing it.
Brianna. Sorry.
Yes, she's fantastic.
So, it's a series of vignettes. So it must have been a bit of a shoot to get that done. And you've got Michael B. Jordan. So there's the celebrity side
Yeah.
of making that spot. What are some things about that spot that stand out for you?
That was incredible. So that came about last December. That was December 2020. It was a pandemic year where I just really didn't think I was going to work again because I hadn't gotten any work. The production was shut down. Nobody was doing anything. So I was like, well, maybe that's it for acting. I had gotten a writing gig during the pandemic, which was great for a Cartoon Network. That was it was a nice project, but no acting. So I was like, well, that's it. So when when they slowly started to do breakdowns, I was like, wow, man, this feels like a Super Bowl commercial. But normally, those would have been shot way before December. So I was like, maybe it's not. They never say it in the breakdown, but it was a live Zoom audition. One of my first doing that. Normally, it had been self-taste before that. So live Zoom, I didn't really like that at the time, but now I've learned to love them. So it was live Zoom. That was off-putting. It felt like a Super Bowl, but they weren't saying what it was, and they didn't state who the celebrity is, and they don't always do that. They don't always state who it is in the breakdown. So I didn't find out that it was, but me and my wife were figuring it was either going to be The Rock or Michael B. Jordan. By the way it was done, I was like, I don't know, this feels like it's going to be a big person. So I didn't find out who the celebrity was until the day of the shoot after I booked it.
Wow.
Yeah. And so that was crazy. But like you were saying, it was little vignettes, right? Normally, most of the commercial shoots I'm doing is like a 1-day shoot. That's it, and maybe one or two costume changes, if that. This was 4 racks of clothes. I was there for 6 hours doing the fitting. Brianna was there for 9, I think she said.
Holy moly.
And then let me keep the clothes afterwards, which was amazing.
Oh, yeah.
I heard that as a myth, but it never happened to me. I kept all those. They were like, take them. Maybe it was a COVID thing. I don't know. But it was, instead of being a 1-day
Might have
shoot,
been.
yeah, instead of being a 1-day shoot, it was a week and a half.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
And
Was it here?
it was here in LA, all over.
Yeah.
We shot all over, and almost every day, overtime, like missing lunch overtime, like long shoot over, and they were just relaxed as hell. I mean, the director was brilliant. He was so good. Wayne McAnany, McAnany,
Wayne McClammy.
Wayne McClammy. Yeah, he's fucking fantastic. I mean,
Wayne is great.
Wayne
Yeah.
pushed me, but he knew what he wanted, and he was really great, and everyone loved him and loved working for him. He kept the set really cash. It was really great. Um, but I show up on set, and I was like, oh, it said MBJ. I was like, oh, Michael B. Jordan, of course it is. He introduces himself to me as Mike B. Oh no, it's Mike as Mike. So I called him Mike B. But he introduced himself to me as Mike, which is really great. And I was like, cool, Mike B. But
You're like, okay, you're Mike, but I'm going to call you Mike B.
That's just me. And I don't really do that. I'm not one of those people who's like assign nicknames to total strangers, but for some reason I felt it necessary. But at the first day of the shoot, like they weren't, I felt like I was kind of being handcuffed. Normally on commercials, like doing every audition for a commercial, I'm always improvising until they say stick with the copy, and I'll stick with the copy. But for the most part, I'm trying to show them you're going to get an improviser when you hire me. So the first day, they were feeding me some lines during the earwig, but there was no script or anything. It was just kind of like, here's the situation. if there was a script, I didn't see it. I don't want to get anyone in trouble. But I felt like I was being handcuffed. I was like, they're not really letting me kind of do my thing. I was like, this is gonna be bullshit. Plus, I felt like Mike, I don't know. I'm just so egotistical nowadays since I became an actor. But plus, Mike B and Brianna felt like they already had a connection because they had shot some stuff before I got there anyway, and they already knew each other. And so I was like, well, they got a secret that I don't have. I feel like an outsider, and they're not letting me improvise. This is bullshit. But the next day and the remaining days, they turned me loose, so to speak. I mean, yes, they were feeding me lines. Yes, they told me the scenarios, but I was allowed to improvise my ass off in a way that was, productive for the production. It wasn't like I'm just doing it for the sake of doing it. I'm never that kind of improviser where I'm just trying to say shit to show how clever I am. That's not it at all. But if it matters to the character and it's a discovery in the moment that is helpful, let's use it. So it was just like I told myself, Mike, I said I am going to make Michael B. Jordan laugh every take. By the last take, he could barely look at me. He would be like, "Wait, wait, wait," because they would feed me lines again through the earwig. We all had earwigs too, so he would hear the lines to feed me, and then I would deliver the line, and he was still breaking. He was like, "Oh my god, I heard it coming," and I still broke.
I love it. It's so funny for anybody who hasn't seen it. Go look at it. It's called I think it's called Alexa's New Body.
Alexa's New Body, and the basic idea
If you
is
just
that
put if you just put Michael B. Jordan
Michael B. Jordan, Alexa,
commercial, you'll
yeah,
but for people who haven't seen it, it's so funny that you mentioned that Brianna and Michael B. Jordan had shot some before you got there, and that when you got there, you felt like they had a connection, they had some magic, because that's the point of the
yeah.
commercial.
It really is, yeah. So it was perfect, right? It really got me into character. So that's great that you point that out. Um, but it was one of those things where it was a game changer, man. Like not only like during the shoot, I could tell I was doing great because they were like, normally the client doesn't talk to me. I mean, they might, hi and bye, they're very cordial, they give their notes and everything. But they were people because it was like a British company, a local company, and everyone was coming up to me going, you're killing it. This is like brilliant. One guy come up to me. He said, I've been working in advertising for the better part of 25 years. He said, this this is after the commercial shot. He DM'd me this. He was like, that might be the best, because there's a 90-second version and a minute version, and it was a 30-second version. He said that might be the best 90 seconds I've ever seen acted in a
In
commercial. I was like,
advertising.
what? Like, if they was saying shit like that. So, Mike, I've been doing commercials for a while, so I learned early on, never read the comments on YouTube. Like, just don't. The first time I did a national Hyundai commercial, it was a car commercial, and I was like, "Oh man, this is fucking killing it. Everybody I know is calling me. Let me just read little comments." First comment I read, it said, "Monkeys don't drive." I was like, "All right, I'm out.
Oh,
I'm out. I'm never reading comments again." Right? So, but that's not the story. But that was just saying, that I don't read comments because people are jerks online. So with this one, I was like, I shouldn't read the comments. But it was a big deal. Like everybody who had my phone number called me at this after on the Super Bowl when it aired. Like everybody, my phone was ringing off the hook. So I was like, let me just venture online since they had, put up the whole 90-second version online. Looked at the comments. It was comment upon comment upon comment about the husband. But did you see the husband? But can we talk about the husband though? To the point where Jay Duplass from the Duplass brothers commented about it. Elizabeth Banks chimed in. People, my friends were saying, yeah, if you want to find out who this guy is, it's Dwayne. So they connected me to Jay, where he was like, dude, if this is really you, you need to stand up and take a bow because you're the real MVP of the Super Bowl. It was a terrible game, but your commercial and your performance in that, he said my performance was like saved the day for him in a way. So he's saying all these wonderful, awesome things online, to the Twitter world. And behind the scenes, he's DMing me saying, hey man, seriously though, that was a great performance. Like you didn't play it like for comedy.
I
Is there
love it.
anything I can do for you? And I was like,
Oh my gosh.
fuck yeah, Jay. You know what I mean? Like I want to level up. Let's get it. So Jay, he did some things for me and he wanted to meet, he was off shooting something. I won't say what it is or because I don't know, but I know who he was shooting with. I won't give it away that way. But he was saying that when he gets back from where he was shooting, he said, we should connect. I want to work with you right away and want to meet with you. So we end up meeting Jay's house for lunch. He's a fucking nice, awesome dude. We just like, we hit it off. We're texting each other bits and stuff. He's just like, awesome dude. I read his book. I saw all his stuff. I didn't realize I was a Duplass Brothers fan because I didn't know I wasn't like a cinephile that way to know that they kind of like made their mark and changed the indie film world. And they did all these wonderful, those guys are prolific too. I mean, they are constantly churning out
They
things that
are.
they're either doing themselves or producing for others. It's amazing. So I hopefully I found a really good friend there. And when I was meeting with Jay, I was telling him how much I really loved that show, Togetherness, that on HBO. They only had 2 seasons, but I really enjoyed it. Um, Even after reading about it in their book, I just wanted to let him know how much I really enjoyed that from beginning to end. I just thought it was a stellar cast, awesome writing, directing, everything. And he was like, "Well, I wrote that so the world could see how awesome my friend Steve is, the guy who was in it." And I was like, "Well, good job," because he was really brilliant. And he was like, "Well, you and Steve got something in common, man. You got this thing that you do with the way you approach your comedies in a very serious way." I was like, "Stop right there. You already been gassing me, Jay. My head's gonna explode, bro." He was like, "But don't worry about it." He said, "I'm gonna be mentioning it to anyone who listen. They should be hiring you." And I was like, God bless you. I mean,
Wow, that's amazing. That's
amazing. Amazing.
And the only person who really lost in this whole thing was Kyle Kansas McGrath, because the Kansas City Chiefs lost the Super Bowl.
And they were like, that was going to be their best shot, bro. I mean, they had the quarterback, they had the season. It was going to go down. But
Kyle, if you're watching, I'm sorry. Yeah,
sorry, Kyle.
Sorry. But you got to be happy.
Well, you know how I feel, but yeah. And that was it. Literally moved the needle though for me, Mike. Casting folks who I was kind of on their radar, maybe barely, I suddenly was going out for everything.
Yeah.
I sent it to every casting person I could think of, whether I had a relationship or not. I was like, no one's going to do it for me. I put it out there. And people got great response. Normally, you put something out, you don't hear anything. I was getting responses like, "This is hilarious. Oh my God, this is great." Like from casting people. What I was saying earlier, I had signed with this guy, Zach Waxenberg from 3 Arts. Well, Zach didn't bring it up, but he had already saw my stuff and had passed. But after the commercial, he was like, "Well, sometimes, some things hit." So we moved forward with that. I didn't bring it up, the fact that he had already passed or anything. And it's been nothing but, I've only booked a couple things. He said, "Don't worry about what's coming back." That's only been since February. He said, "Don't worry about what's coming back. I'm liking what I'm seeing in the auditions I'm submitting." So I did book a co-star role since then, but it's just like a one-liners, which I was trying to level up from doing. I've been doing one-liners for like the past few years on shows that I enjoy. I'm not trying to say I'm above that by any means. Please hire me. I'll do. Luckily, I've had some really.
You've had some great shows. The Morning Show and Superstore and Silicon Valley and Baskets and Brooklyn Nine-Nine and Veep. Right? I mean, you've had some pretty great stuff out there,
and some great scenes with like a lot of the principals on those shows, and they were all very nice and awesome.
Which is a great segue because we're out of time, but I want to hear any thoughts, advice, tips that you have for do you to a person who's just getting started in acting or just getting started in writing or comedy or any thoughts that you have? I mean, you could say go to UC Davis. I don't know.
I don't know how much that'll help anyone. I would say improv was my saving grace. With my writing, it improved my writing just wholeheartedly, and it made me an actor. I didn't study acting until after improv, but I actually did end up studying acting. So my lifelong journey is to become a better actor. But improv, it even makes some serious actors nervous because you're out there on the tightrope. So improv, you're a writer on your feet. It will definitely help you. The way to start it is take a class. Take an improv class. If you like, go see a show at a theater. Go see the show at all the theaters and be like, where do I feel like I should be playing? Is this show that I like? Do I want to do what they're doing? And I found, several homes. My most recent home being Impro Theater, which, I don't know, we didn't get a chance to talk about, but I was really nervous and excited about being a part of Impro. So I would start with improv because improv just opened up the whole world for me. I'm never nervous on auditions because of improv.
Yeah.
Excited, but not nervous.
Yeah. You channel it. You find a way to channel it, and you look for opportunity. Improv, I think, teaches you to look for opportunities.
Exactly that. Yep.
That is fantastic, and I'm so excited that you're working with us at Impro. Also,
I'm glad. Thanks for asking me too, Mike. You're the best, man. You are a big part of the reason why I came there. You just salted the earth, bro. I love the way you play. You're just a dope human being, man. From day one, I just really appreciate you being my friend.
Thanks, man. Same.
Right on.
This has been Impro Talk with Dwayne, just like Stephen, Colbert. And thank you for joining us. And if you're just listening to this sometime in the future, I hope everything has gone great since the pandemic ended. Stay tuned at improtheater.com for information about classes and shows, and right here on our Twitch channel, of course. And we'll see you next time. Thanks again, Dwayne.
Thanks, Mike.
And of course, we want to thank Rachel Wall. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Impro Talk. has gone great since the pandemic ended. Stay tuned at improtheater.com for information about classes and shows, and right here on our Twitch channel, of course. And we'll see you next time. Thanks again, Dwayne.
Thanks, Mike.
And of course, we want to thank Rachel Wasserman, our OBS tech, and Allison Inconstanti, our Twitch chat moderator.